Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Have you ever heard a word or a phrase and it reminds you of a song, and then you get that song stuck in your head, and then you're singing that song for a while, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, why have I been singing this song for 10 minutes? I don't even like this song, or this is enough of this song. This is how our mind works. We're still kind of discovering, how does the mind work? There's a lot we don't know about that. But to be more effective human beings, one thing we can do is we can train our thinking. And today I'm referencing chapters 10 and 11 in the book The Wise Heart by Jack Kornfield. And he recommends that we investigate the content of thoughts and the process of thinking itself. So training our thinking is fundamental to spirituality, and not just spirituality, but also personal growth and self-help and coaching. All kinds of coaching methodologies are about training our thinking. So we can make distinctions about how the mind works. There's different ways the mind works. And one way is that high-level, focused thinking. When we're really in the flow of life, we're being very effective, very productive. Kornfield calls this wise thought. Wise thought. Another way our mind works is just that menial, pedestrian type of thinking. It's just getting through the day. We're not really feeling plugged in. You might be at the grocery store. You might be getting what you need, but you might be thinking about a conversation you had earlier or what you're going to do tomorrow. So the mind is just kind of getting us through the day. Another way the mind works is just random noise and chatter. This is ineffective. It's not productive. It's routine. You know, it doesn't have any meaningful results. So you might not even call that thinking. We might not even want to classify that as thinking, because it's just that random noise that's not producing any results. Now, with that high level or that focused thinking, we can bring forth new energy structures, and we can significantly reorganize existing energy structures. So you might even imagine that as when you're really focused and thinking, that you're affecting the energy structures of the space. We can bring conscious light to a subject, so we can consciously bring light to a subject, and then we can see how to best address the concerns. And we'll understand what actions to take. What effective action can we take here to address concerns? Effective thinking involves originating ideas or making new distinctions. And when we do this, then we're understanding with clarity, and we're perceptive, we're intuitive, we're able to make connections and see relationships. We can cut through the BS, we can cut through the junk and the belief systems that might be clouding the way. Some people call this a eureka moment or a light bulb moment. It's insight, it's that sudden awareness. And there's examples from science. They talk about Isaac Newton, how he came up with the law of gravity, that he was in contemplation, sitting under the tree, and he saw the apple fall, and then he started thinking, why does the apple always fall down? Why does it always fall in one direction? And then he comes up with this whole law of motion and law of gravity. And in the arts, Paul McCartney says that song Yesterday, one of his biggest hits, greatest hits, it just came to him all at once. That tune came to him all at once. And this happens, you'll hear these stories in the arts and in discovery and science and many different fields. What percentage of the time do we spend thinking effectively? And what if we could increase that time? What if we could increase that time where we're really generating new ideas and making new distinctions and seeing connections and relationships and insights and having that sudden awareness? This is why we meditate. This is why we go on retreats. And this is why businesses do brainstorming sessions. They want to get you out of that routine so you create space for creativity, for newness, for insights, for revelations. And this is that process of just revealing, bringing forth, seeing in the light. So when we practice mindfulness, what we're doing is we're living in awareness, and we're asking, what am I thinking? That's a lot of mindfulness. What's going on in my mind? And of course, effective thinking does not involve random chatter. So Cornfield says that when we become aware of what our minds are doing, we see how our ridiculous repetitive thought stream continually constructs our limited sense of self with judgments, defenses, ambitions, and compensations. So we can be bound by thoughts of fear, lack, and limitation. So what's a remedy? How do we get out of this random chatter and these negative thought patterns and this energy that we produce? Well, Cornfield says you can name your greatest hits. He calls it naming your top 10 tunes. And again, this is just bringing awareness. Become an observer, become an investigator, become an explorer. So you can ask, what are my repetitious and persistent thoughts? What's my fallback position? And this is what is coming up unconsciously. Like, where do I go when I feel challenged? Where do I go mentally? Where do my thoughts go when I feel any kind of, I didn't do something right, or I feel less than, or I'm worried about something and I'm anxious, I'm afraid? I think a lot of us have some kind of fallback position, and it's what we've learned. And then the next level is, what is the origin of these thoughts? Where did these thoughts come from? Why am I having these particular thought patterns? We build our life with stories. Cornfield quotes the poet Muriel Rukeyser. She says, the universe is made of stories. And often we become quite attached to our stories. We hold on to them as part of our identity because we're using these stories to create ourselves, to create our identity. And we benefit from these stories, even stories that are negative sometimes, even those stories that don't sound very positive, we can have some benefit. I mean, just for an example, if I tell the story that I'm not good at cooking, I don't like cooking, then nobody expects me to serve Thanksgiving dinner. Nobody's going to expect to come to my house for Thanksgiving. So I can have some benefit to my attachment to a certain story, even if it's not necessarily my best self. So Cornfield says that experiences are like seeds, and we store them. And then when the conditions are right, the seeds grow. So being mindful involves becoming aware of what types of plants are we nurturing? What types of plants are we growing? What seeds are we holding? And what kind of conditions are causing those seeds to sprout? So Jesus said, by the fruit you know the tree. By the fruit you know what kind of tree it is. And of course this involves a different kind. You can tell a pecan tree from an apple tree, of course. But you could also have 3 of the same type of tree. Like maybe you could have 3 orange trees, and on one the fruit might be bitter, on another one sour, and on another one sweet. These are the results that we're producing from our thought patterns, from these seeds that we're harboring, and from when we water that soil and the light shines and the conditions are right for something to sprout. And it can be beautiful and productive, or it can also be, bitter or sour. So again, our thoughts produce visible results that affect ourselves and other people. And our patterns of thinking and our stories can be these unconscious forces that lie dormant. So we may not be very aware of these stories that we're harboring or where they came from. But they're there, they're dormant, and then they get triggered. And we all probably have that experience. And they can cause us to react into fight or flight mode. Like, I need to flee, I need to protect myself, or I'm going to come out swinging. So when we become mindful, we make the unconscious conscious. We become aware of what we're harboring and what we have not wanted to face or look at. So we bring light to the darkness. So in the meditation, that was something that I learned from Dr. Jean Houston, which she's spoken here several times, but she actually talks about changing a memory. Like you can change your memories because the memories is just something you're harboring. It's a story that you've harbored. And where is that memory? Is it something you can touch? Can you put your hands tactically on a memory? Or is it something that you could change? We could remember it. We could remember it differently if we think about, again, how would I have reacted? And you can go back a long way. You can go back into childhood. Like, what would my mom have done if she was really feeling balanced and supported and nourished and nurtured and harmonious and all of that, instead of some of the other feelings that come up in life. So again, we get these stories from all types of feedback, from the time we're little bitty, from our families, culture, community, media, all kinds of sources. Just for an example, I have an older brother. He's 14 months older than me. And when we were little, I noticed that he's really a talented artist. And he would make these very detailed, just very tedious, realistic drawings of things. And I was amazed. And so I told the story, I'm not an artist. I'm not a good artist. My brother's the artist. But I realized, like when I was in junior high, that I liked art class. I had fun in art class. I enjoyed creating things. And what I could create is very different from what my brother produces, and that's fine. That's okay. I mean, I'm not going to do those very meticulous, realistic drawings like he does, but I can still enjoy and express myself and have fun. So I don't have to harbor the story that I'm not good at art, my brother's the artist in the family, that kind of thing. So we can notice what we're noticing. Notice these stories. And these thoughts and these stories, they exist at an individual level and also at a group level. So we have the individual and the personal consciousness, but we also have a storehouse of universal consciousness. And of course, Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious. But it's this source of, again, if humanity is a field and everything's available everywhere all at once for all time, forward and backward, then we can draw on this same storehouse of symbols, the stories that we're telling. And we all, again, have examples of stories from our families, our cultures, our communities, our organizations. Our organizations have histories and have stories that we tell either consciously or unconsciously. They may be in the light, they may be in the dark. And I think this is a lot of what we wrestle with, for example, as a country, as the United States of America currently. We wrestle with these stories about who we are. And you may have noticed that one of the big issues involves guns and violence. And I think one way to sort of resolve what's going on is to own our stories. And that involves admitting that this country was actually founded with a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence in the history of the United States. And you look at Texas, for example, the mode of operation was to drive out or kill all the indigenous people. That was Texas. So there are 3 indigenous tribes in Texas that are recognized by the federal government. All of them came from elsewhere, from other states. So in other words, we don't have the ones who were here before, because the whole goal was to drive out and get rid of them. So we have to confront these stories, I think, and that involves telling it how it really was, confronting it, atoning, repenting, forgiving, just being aware that this is part of our history and this affects us today because we're carrying it around, whether consciously or unconsciously. It's still affecting us and we're still carrying it around. So what we want to do is try to come to some balance and harmony. And again, I don't think that avoiding is conducive to that. It's difficult. These can be difficult conversations. And it makes people uncomfortable, and I get that. But revealing what is hidden frees the soul. Revealing what is hidden frees the soul, not just of the individual, but the collective. And that's what happens in transformational training. They ask, what stories am I using to construct my life? And who am I without these stories? Who am I without these stories that I tell? Because it can be scary. Again, even if the stories are not that beneficial or positive, when you take those away, what's left? So you ask yourself, who am I without these stories that I tell about myself and my life? And the more attached we are to these stories, then the more painful or difficult the process can be of letting go. And the result, when we go through this practice, Cornfield says that we're finding an unshakable ease. I love that, an unshakable ease. So we can be really solid in the world. We can be stable and yet still eager and open and available. We can be clear instead of dense and twisted up and confused. We can be a conduit that allows a free flow of energy instead of blocking with resistance. And then we're free to progress instead of lugging around these heavy burdens. I've been listening to a podcast called The Living Myth. It's with Michael Mead. And they're short, like 25 minutes, but he talks about ancient stories or wisdom traditions, or he talks about humanity. And he talks about humanity as being a caravan. Like we're a caravan and we're progressing, we're moving, we're going somewhere. But sometimes we're not moving very fast. And of course, the more luggage we're dragging around, the slower the progress is going to be. So sometimes we just have to jettison the old that's no longer serving us, these old stories that are not helping us progress. And then we can go forth with that ease and lightness of being. So, to be effective with our thinking, we can let thoughts come and go without grasping, without clinging, without holding on to them, without judging ourselves. Oh, I shouldn't be judging. Now I'm judging that I'm judging. Sometimes just let it go. Okay, I'm aware. I see what's happening. I bless myself. I can choose another path. And we can tap into that space of love and compassion for ourselves and for other people and discover the insight and the wisdom that is always available. In the book, Cornfield says, the key to wise thought is to sense the energy state behind the thought. If we pay attention, we will notice that certain thoughts are produced by fear and the sense of the small self. With them will be clinging, rigidity, unworthiness, defensiveness, aggression, or anxiety. And we can notice the effects that the thoughts are having in the body. Sometimes we might notice the effects in the body before we're even aware of what these thoughts are. So again, you might feel constriction in the chest. You might feel your breath shorten or tighten. You might feel your fists are clenching. You might feel your neck is tightening up. So the body can give us messages. What's happening? What thoughts am I holding? What patterns? What stories? Why is this being expressed in my body as well? And when we notice, then we can choose to relax and breathe and let go of that identification, let go of identifying with those thoughts, or saying, this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. This is my life. As Michael Mead says in the podcast that I've been listening to, The Living Myth, when we confront challenges, we can either become a more expansive soul or a smaller human. We can become a more expansive soul using these challenges to learn, to help us grow, to help us progress, to help us see what to release, to connect with all of humanity, to allow that light and that higher awareness and the deeper insights. Or we can shrink and we can go into that protective mode. We can flee or fight and become a smaller human. But let's hope that we keep exploring how to bring more joy and more peace to the world. Thank you. Oh yeah.
Thank
now
you.
we talk.
We want you to stay.
Yes, I forgot. telling, where do I go next?
Thank you, Shirley. The idea of exploring is such a helpful way to work with the mind. I like to use the Byron Katie process of questioning my thoughts. Like, is that true? Is it true? Okay, can I prove that it's true? And it just helps to bring some light into that. It's kind of those cobwebs in there, that aren't serving us. And you're right on point with that. It shows up in the body. There are things that show up in my body that I don't always know. Like, what could it be connected with? I try to figure it out, and I like to use Louise Hay's work, where she has the Heal Your Body book, and you can go in and look at any body part, and then it says like what thoughts you are holding, and whether I align with that or not, it helps to give me some insight. Like, oh, okay, or I could see how maybe I am holding thoughts of disappointment that I can look into and let go of, and just start working with the storytelling mind and letting go of some stuff that can tend to be running unconscious within us, right?
Yeah, when I was working on this, there's a movie called How to Train Your Dragon, and I kept thinking about like how to train your thoughts. It's kind of and the thoughts can be like this big dragon with like a little thing around its neck, and we're trying to train our thoughts.
Yeah, I love that you brought up how he talks about the notice your greatest hits, your top 10 greatest hits, because there's a playfulness to that too. That it's not, yes, it's like the biggest thing is at stake, right? Our freedom, our liberation, and yet though, we can be playful with it when we start investigating and noticing those top 10 hits of ours. Where do I go to when I'm feeling, defensive? Where do I go to? What kinds of things? Just start being that observer so that we can be with them instead of fleeing from them. We don't have to be afraid of them. We don't have to shut them down, pretend they're not there, but we can, really be there.
Yeah, and not make ourselves wrong.
Yes.
Not make ourselves wrong, because it's just the way the mind works. It's, we need to have reactions to things. We need to be able to respond. But the top 10, the greatest hits that get repetitive. And sometimes it's just inane stuff, it seems like for me, just again, that's not producing any meaningful results. So wow, I would love to just spend more time in that creativity and that that focused awareness.
Yeah. It's so important when we're working with heightened emotional states that show up in our mind, that we can have some space from that and objectivity. I love Mary Morrissey's teaching, and she says like something comes up like that, that's like just a big holy cow type moment, to give it 3 days before making any kind of major decisions around it, so you can sort all that out and give it some space, because when you're in the heat of it, you're going to say and do things that you probably regret.
When you're texting like this,
Yes.
or even maybe I should pause here. Maybe
Maybe the best response is no response, or
yes,
I'll catch up with you later.
Do I really need to say this?
Yeah.
And maybe I don't.
I really appreciate too how you talked about it. What you've noticed in your body. I can remember there were times when I'd be around a certain person, I could feel my shoulders go up to my ears like this, but it was a literal, just reaction. And Eckhart Tolle talks about so then my thought would be like, no, I'm not like this. I'm accepting and open to this person. That's what my thought would be, in denial that I was having that reaction. And Eckhart says, trust your feeling. That's what's telling the truth. If you notice a body sensation or a feeling, not that the whole truth of everything, but the truth that you're having some reaction. Your mind might try to deny that you're having a reaction, especially as Unity people, we want to think that we're just wonderful all the time. We are. And too, though, we have reactions that we can deal with when we are accepting of them, as you said, not beat ourselves up for them.
Yeah, because they're important messages.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've had to learn, is when I am reacting to somebody else, it's about me. So what can I explore about my own thoughts, stories, triggers, reactions, what's coming up and why? Because there's always a reason.
Yeah.
It's, if it's not in our awareness, bothering us, it being experienced in the body, then we're just neutral to it. So it's not something we are actively responding to.
Yeah. It's sometimes we're masters and we can say it's just a mind state.
Yeah.
It's just a mind state. It's passing through. And we want to honor that, our humanity, our humanity that gets hooked by triggers, and be gentle and kind with yourself. I always remember to do that when working with changing some grooves that we've made, some real deep grooves. As we think about things with parents and family, those are the deepest grooves, right? To learn and get support in creating new thought patterns there.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Did you want to share something else?
No, there's just agreeing with you.
Oh,
Of your dreams is already within you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.